The smell of antiseptic and dying flowers filled my nostrils as I adjusted Mom's pillow for the 100th time that day. Her breathing was shallow, rattling like autumn leaves in the wind. I'd been sitting in this same chair for 3 months straight, watching the woman who raised me fade away one labored breath at a time. My name is Taya, and I used to have a life. Used to have a marketing job downtown, a small apartment with plants I somehow kept alive, weekend brunches with friends. That was before Mom got the diagnosis. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 6 months, they said. Maybe less. You don't have to do this, Mom whispered, her voice barely audible above the hum of the oxygen machine. Her eyes, once bright green like mine, had dulled to the color of old jade. Yes, I do. I squeezed her hand, feeling how thin her fingers had become. Someone has to. The front door slammed downstairs, followed by the click of designer heels on hardwood. My sister Reese was home from whatever influencer event she'd been attending today. At 28, she had somehow convinced the world that her daily outfit posts and skincare routines were worth following. More importantly, she'd convinced our father that her brand was more valuable than my presence here. Taya! Dad's voice boomed from the kitchen. Get down here! I looked at Mom, who gave me the faintest nod. Go, I'll be fine. Downstairs, Dad stood with his arms crossed, his new wife King hovering behind him like a vulture in Chanel. Reese lounged on the couch, not even looking up from her phone. We need to talk, Dad said. His voice had that edge it got when he was about to deliver bad news disguised as tough love. About what? About this. He gestured vaguely toward the ceiling, toward Mom's room. This whole situation. You've been here for months, Taya. Months. When are you going to get back to your real life? This is my real life. Mom is dying. Reese finally looked up, her perfectly contoured face twisted in annoyance. She's been dying for months. The doctor said 6 months. It's been 8. Maybe it's time to accept that you can't save her by sitting there like some kind of martyr. The words hit like a slap. I'm not trying to save her. I'm trying to be here for her. While the rest of us have to pick up the pieces, King chimed in, her voice dripping with the false concern. Your father's been covering your expenses, your insurance, everything. It's not sustainable. I never asked. You didn't have to ask, Dad interrupted, but you also didn't think about the burden you were putting on this family. Reese has opportunities, real opportunities, brand partnerships, sponsorship deals. She can't focus on her career while you're up there playing nurse. I stared at him. Playing nurse? I'm taking care of your wife. You're enabling her, Reese said, finally standing up. Mom would want you to live your life, not waste it hovering over her deathbed. It's honestly kind of selfish. The room went quiet except for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. I felt something crack inside my chest, something that had been holding me together for months. Selfish, I repeated. We're just saying, Dad continued, his voice softer now. Maybe it's time to consider other options. Professional care, a facility, something that doesn't require you to sacrifice everything. I turned and walked back upstairs without another word. Behind me, I heard Reese mutter something about me being impossible and King agreeing that I'd always been difficult. Back in Mom's room, I found her awake, watching me with those tired eyes. They want me to leave, I said. She nodded slowly. I heard. I won't. I can't. Mom reached under her pillow and pulled out a worn manila envelope, her movements careful and deliberate. When the time comes, she whispered, pressing it into my hands. Open this, not before. Promise me. Mom, promise me, Taya. When they push too hard, when you think you can't fight anymore, open it. But not until then, I promised, tucking the envelope into my jacket pocket. 3 days later, Mom died in her sleep. I was holding her hand. The funeral was small, cold. Dad and King sat in the front row with Reese, who spent half the service checking her phone. I sat alone in the second row, feeling like a stranger at my own mother's goodbye. That night, my phone rang. Reese's name flashed on the screen. "Your little pity party is over," she said without preamble. "Dad's being generous. You have until Friday to find somewhere else to go." The line went dead. I stared at the phone, then at the envelope Mom had given me, still unopened on my nightstand. Friday was tomorrow. I woke up Friday morning to the sound of my key not working in the front door. I stood there in my pajamas, coffee cup in hand, jiggling the key like an idiot, while my breath formed clouds in the October air. Having trouble? I turned to see Reese standing in the doorway, arms crossed, smirking like she just won the lottery. "The lock's broken," I said. "No, it's not. We changed it." My coffee cup slipped from my hands, shattering on the porch steps. "You what?" "Dad had the locks changed this morning. Your stuff's right there." She pointed to 3 cardboard boxes stacked next to the porch swing. 3 boxes. 32 years of life, reduced to 3 boxes. "You can't just—" "Actually, we can." Dad appeared behind Reese, fully dressed despite it being barely 7 a.m. "This is my house, Taya. Has been since your mother and I bought it 25 years ago. Mom lived here too. She just died a week ago, and now she's gone." His voice was flat, matter of fact. "Time for you to start your real life. Consider this a favor. We're forcing you to be independent." I stared at the boxes, then at my father's face. There was no warmth there, no recognition that I was his daughter, that I'd spent the last 8 months caring for his dying wife while he played house with King. "Where am I supposed to go?" "That's not really our problem," Reese said. "You're 32, Taya. Figure it out. You're enjoying this." The words came out before I could stop them. Reese's smile widened. "You know what? Yeah, I am. You've been playing the victim for months, acting like you're so much better than the rest of us because you were willing to sit in a death room. Well, congratulations. She's dead, and you're homeless. How's that working out for you?" I lunged forward, but Dad stepped between us. "Enough," he said. "Reese, go inside. Taya, take your boxes and go. This is insane. You can't just throw me out. Watch me." He pulled out his phone. "I can call the police if you'd prefer. Trespassing charges might make finding a place to live even harder." My hands were shaking. From cold or rage, I couldn't tell. "Mom would be ashamed of you. Your mother was sick for a long time. She wasn't thinking clearly toward the end. If she were here, she'd want you to move on with your life instead of clinging to the past." A car pulled into the driveway. My friend Jillian got out, took one look at the scene, and marched up the walkway. "What the hell is going on here?" "Family business," Dad said. "Family business?" Jillian looked at the boxes, then at me standing there in my pajamas. "You threw her out? The day after her mother's funeral?" "A week after," Reese corrected from the doorway. "We gave her time to grieve." Jillian's face went red. "You're unbelievable, both of you." "This doesn't concern you," Dad said. "It concerns me when my best friend is being treated like garbage by her own family." Jillian grabbed 2 of the boxes. "Come on, Taya. You're staying with me." I picked up the 3rd box, my hands still trembling. Inside, I could feel Mom's envelope pressing against my ribs where I tucked it into my jacket pocket. "You were always so soft," Dad called after me as I walked toward Jillian's car. "So easy to take advantage of. Maybe this will toughen you up." I stopped walking. "What did you say?" "You heard me. You let people walk all over you. Your mother, your old boss, everyone. Maybe now you'll learn to stand up for yourself." "I stood up for Mom when no one else would." "You enabled her. There's a difference." Jillian slammed the car trunk shut. "Get in the car, Taya, before I say something that gets me arrested." As we drove away, I watched the house shrink in the side mirror. The house where I'd grown up, where I'd held my mother's hand as she died, where I'd apparently never belonged at all. I'm sorry, Jillian said quietly. I'm so sorry. I pulled out Mom's envelope, turning it over in my hands. The paper was soft from handling, and I could see Mom's careful handwriting through the thin manila. What's that? Something Mom gave me. She said to open it when I couldn't fight anymore. Sounds like now qualifies. I tore open the envelope. Inside was a letter in Mom's handwriting and a business card. The card was simple, elegant. Xander Vasquez, estate attorney. I unfolded the letter, my hands shaking as I read the first line. My dearest Taya, if you're reading this, then they've shown you exactly who they are. Now, let me show you who you really are. Jillian, I said, my voice barely a whisper. What? I think I need to call this lawyer. Xander Vasquez's office was nothing like I expected. Instead of stuffy leather and dark wood, it was all glass and clean lines, with plants everywhere and natural light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. Ms. Robinson, he said, standing as his secretary showed me in. He was younger than I'd imagined, maybe early 40s, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Please sit down. I clutched Mom's letter in my sweaty palm. I'm not sure why I'm here. My mother gave me your card, but you're wondering if this is real. He smiled gently. Your mother was a remarkable woman, very thorough, very strategic. Strategic? She hired me 18 months ago, right after her diagnosis. He pulled out a thick file folder. She was very specific about the timing of our meeting. She said you'd come to me when you had nowhere else to turn. My throat tightened. She knew they'd throw me out. She knew a lot of things. He opened the folder. Before we continue, I need you to understand something. There's going to be a hearing, an eviction hearing. Your father filed the paperwork yesterday. Yesterday? But he filed it the day after the funeral. Very efficient. Xander's voice carried a hint of disgust. The hearing is scheduled for next Tuesday. I don't understand. How can he evict me from a house I don't even live in anymore? Because technically, you do still live there, legally speaking. Your mother made sure of that. He slid a document across the desk. She had you listed as a resident with legal standing. Your father's trying to have that overturned. I stared at the paper, the legal language swimming before my eyes. This is insane. It gets worse. He's also claiming you've been financially irresponsible and emotionally unstable. He's asking the court to declare you unfit to make decisions about your living situation. Unfit? The word came out as a croak. He's painting you as someone who abandoned her career to play caregiver, someone who can't function in the real world. Xander leaned forward. The good news is, none of that matters. What do you mean? I mean, show up to the hearing. Don't say anything. Don't react. Just sit there and let me handle it. That's it? That's your legal strategy? Trust me. His smile was sharp now, predatory. Your mother was very, very thorough. I left his office more confused than when I'd arrived. Back at Jillian's apartment, I tried to make sense of everything while she paced around her living room. So this lawyer says just show up and don't talk? That's what he said. And you trust him? I don't know. Mom trusted him. Jillian stopped pacing. Taya, there's something else. I've been looking at those eviction papers your dad filed. What about them? The dates don't match up. He claims you've been living there rent-free for 8 months, but the paperwork shows he only started paying utilities in your name 3 months ago. So either he's lying about the timeline or... She trailed off, frowning. Or what? Or he's been planning this longer than we thought. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, but I recognized the profile picture immediately. Reese. The message was a photo of my old bedroom, completely trashed. Clothes scattered everywhere. My desk overturned. Picture frames smashed on the floor. The caption read, "Cleaning out the dead weight. You never belonged here anyway." That bitch, Jillian said, reading over my shoulder. I stared at the photo, at the destruction of the last physical traces of my life in that house. My hands started shaking again. Another text came through. This one was a video. Reese, standing in the wreckage of my room, smiling at the camera. "Hey sis," she said in the video, her voice sickeningly sweet. "Just wanted you to see what happens to people who overstay their welcome. Don't worry though. I'm sure you'll land on your feet. You're so good at taking care of people. Maybe you can find work as a maid or something." She laughed, the sound echoing off the bare walls of what used to be my sanctuary. "Hope you're enjoying your new life," she continued. "Oh, and don't bother coming to the hearing on Tuesday. Dad's lawyer says it's just a formality. You're going to lose anyway." The video ended. I set the phone down carefully, afraid I might throw it against the wall. "Taya," Jillian said quietly, "I'm fine." "No, you're not. And that's okay." I looked at her, this friend who'd dropped everything to help me, who'd opened her home to me without question. "What if they're right?" I whispered. "What if I'm just dead weight?" "Then why did your mom give you that lawyer's card?" I pulled out Mom's letter again, reading the words I'd memorized. "When they show you who they are, let me show you who you really are." I guess we'll find out Tuesday. The courthouse smelled like disinfectant and broken dreams. I sat in the back row of the small hearing room, wearing the only decent outfit I'd managed to salvage from my 3 boxes. A black dress I'd bought for job interviews that never happened. Dad sat in the front row with his lawyer, a sharp-faced woman in an expensive suit. King was beside him, wearing pearls like she was attending a charity luncheon instead of trying to destroy someone's life. Reese lounged next to them, scrolling through her phone like she was bored. All rise for the Honorable Judge Martinez. The judge was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, who looked like she'd heard every sob story in the book and wasn't impressed by any of them. "This is case number 2023-4471, Robinson versus Robinson, petition for emergency eviction and declaration of incompetency." She looked over her reading glasses. "Mr. Hartwell, you're representing the petitioner?" Dad's lawyer stood up. "Yes, Your Honor. My client, Frank Robinson, is seeking immediate eviction of his adult daughter, Taya Robinson, from the family residence. Ms. Robinson has been living there rent-free for 8 months, contributing nothing to household expenses while my client has shouldered the financial burden." "And where is Ms. Robinson's representation?" I started to stand, my mouth dry. "Your Honor, She doesn't have any," Reese called out from the front row. "She can't afford it." The judge's eyes narrowed. "Ms. Robinson, do you have legal representation?" Before I could answer, the courtroom door opened. Xander walked in, carrying a leather briefcase and looking like he owned the place. "Your Honor, I apologize for the delay. Xander Vasquez, representing the estate of Eleanor Fox Robinson." The room went dead silent. Dad turned around in his seat, his face pale. "The estate?" Judge Martinez looked confused. "Mr. Vasquez, this is an eviction hearing, not a probate matter." "With respect, Your Honor, they're more connected than they appear." Xander set his briefcase on the defendant's table and gestured for me to join him. "May I approach?" "You may." I walked to the front on shaking legs, feeling Dad's eyes burning into my back. Xander handed the judge a sealed envelope. "What is this?" she asked. "The last will and testament of Eleanor Fox Robinson, deceased, filed with the probate court this morning." Dad shot to his feet. "That's impossible. Eleanor didn't have a will." "Sit down, Mr. Robinson," the judge said sharply. She opened the envelope and began reading. Her eyebrows climbed higher with each line. "Your Honor," Dad's lawyer interjected, "this is highly irregular. We're here for an eviction hearing, not—" "You're here because your client filed for emergency eviction of a property he doesn't own," Xander said calmly. "What?" Reese stood up now too. "Of course he owns it. It's his house." Judge Martinez looked up from the will. "Mr. Hartwell, did you verify property ownership before filing this petition?" Dad's lawyer shuffled through her papers. "My client assured me he was the sole owner of the residence in question. Well, according to this will, dated and notarized 18 months ago, the property at 12 on 47 Maple Street was transferred into a trust with Eleanor Fox Robinson as the sole trustee. The judge's voice was getting colder. Upon her death, all trust assets transferred to her daughter, Taya Robinson. The courtroom erupted. Dad was shouting something about fraud. Reese was screaming that it wasn't fair, and King was demanding to see the paperwork. Order! Judge Martinez banged her gavel. Order in my courtroom. This is bullshit, Reese yelled. She manipulated Mom when she was dying. One more outburst and you'll be held in contempt, the judge warned. Xander opened his briefcase and pulled out another folder. Your Honor, there's more. We have evidence that Mr. Robinson illegally accessed his daughter's bank accounts and drained her savings while she was caring for his dying wife. That's a lie, Dad said, but his voice cracked. Bank records don't lie, Mr. Robinson. Xander handed copies to the judge and Dad's lawyer. Unauthorized transfers totaling $23,000 over the past 3 months. Dad's lawyer was frantically flipping through the papers. Your Honor, my client never mentioned. Because your client committed fraud, Xander said. He drained his daughter's accounts to pay for his new wife's credit card bills. King gasped. Frank, you said that money came from your savings. Shut up, King, Dad hissed. Don't tell me to shut up. You used her money to pay for my shopping? Judge Martinez banged her gavel again. That's enough. Mr. Hartwell, your petition is denied. Not only does your client lack standing to evict Ms. Robinson, but he appears to have committed several felonies in the process. Your Honor, Dad's lawyer tried one more time. Surely we can... We're done here. The judge stood up. Ms. Robinson, you are the legal owner of the property in question. Mr. Robinson, you and your family have 72 hours to vacate the premises. I'm also ordering an immediate investigation into the alleged bank fraud. She banged the gavel one final time. Court dismissed. The room was spinning. I gripped the edge of the table to keep from falling over. Taya, Xander said quietly, are you okay? I looked across the room at my family. Dad was slumped in his chair, his face gray. King was crunking, mascara running down her cheeks. And Reese was staring at me with pure hatred. This isn't over, she mouthed. But for the first time in months, I smiled. Yes, it is. Back at Xander's office, I sat across from his desk in a daze while he pulled out file after file. I don't understand, I said for the 10th time. Mom never had money. We were always scraping by. Your mother was very good at appearing to scrape by. Xander opened a thick folder. 18 months ago, she came to me with a problem. She'd made an investment years ago that had grown beyond her wildest dreams, but she was afraid of what your father would do if he found out. What kind of investment? A small tech startup. She put in $5,000 back in 2015. The company went public last year. He slid a document across the desk. That $5,000 is now worth $2.3 million. I stared at the number, certain I was misreading it. Million with an M? With an M, plus the house, which she had transferred into a trust to protect it from your father's creditors. His creditors? Your father has been living beyond his means for years. Credit cards, loans, gambling debts. Your mother knew he'd drain every account she had if he got the chance. The room felt like it was tilting. She knew he was stealing from me. She suspected. That's why she had me monitor your accounts. When the transfer started 3 months ago, we documented everything. Why didn't she tell me? Because she was dying, and she needed you to focus on her, not on financial warfare. Xander's voice was gentle. She also knew that if you found out about the money, you might not have stayed to take care of her. You might have felt like you had other options. I would never have left her. She knew that too. But she also knew your father would have found a way to get to the money if he'd known about it. This way, she protected both you and her legacy. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Dad, I showed it to Xander. Should I respond? That's up to you, but remember, anything you say can be used against you if this goes to criminal court. Criminal court? Bank fraud is a felony, Taya. Your father could face serious jail time. Another text. Please, I'm begging you. We can work this out. Then another. King left me. Took everything. I have nothing. He's panicking, Xander observed. My phone rang. Dad's name on the screen. Don't answer it, Xander advised, but I was already swiping to accept. Hello? Taya, thank God. Listen, I know things got heated in court, but we're family. We can fix this. Fix what exactly? This misunderstanding. Your mother was sick. She wasn't thinking clearly. She never would have wanted to destroy our family like this. She didn't destroy our family. You did that all by yourself. I made mistakes. I admit that. But I'm your father. Doesn't that count for something? I looked at Xander, who was taking notes. It counted for something when you threw me out of the house the week after Mom's funeral. I was grieving too. I wasn't thinking straight. You were thinking straight enough to steal my money. Silence on the other end. Then, I borrowed it. I was going to pay it back. With what money? The money you don't have because you gambled it all away? How did you... He stopped himself. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we're family. Blood is thicker than water. Blood is thicker than water, but it's not thicker than betrayal. Taya, please, I'm asking you, as your father, to show mercy. Don't press charges. Let me make this right. How? How are you going to make this right? I'll pay back every penny. I'll get a job. You'll what? You're 58 years old with no skills and a gambling problem. How exactly are you going to pay back $23,000? Another long silence. When he spoke again, his voice was different, harder. Fine. You want to play hardball? Two can play that game. What's that supposed to mean? It means I raised you for 32 years. I put a roof over your head, food in your mouth, clothes on your back. I think I'm owed a little gratitude. Gratitude? For doing the bare minimum that parents are supposed to do? For doing more than the bare minimum? For putting up with your attitude, your selfishness, your constant need for attention? The words hit like physical blows. My need for attention? Oh, you always had to be the victim, didn't you? Poor Taya, sacrificing everything for Mommy. Poor Taya, so noble and selfless. Well, congratulations. You got what you wanted. You're the hero of your own sob story. And you're the villain of mine. I'm your father. No, I said, surprised by how calm my voice sounded. You're a stranger who happens to share my DNA. A father wouldn't have done what you did. I hung up. Xander was watching me carefully. How do you feel? Like I just cut off a limb that was already infected. That's probably the healthiest thing you could have done. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Reese. Enjoy your blood money, sis. Hope it was worth losing your family over. I showed the text to Xander. Your family lost you, he said, not the other way around. For the first time since this whole nightmare started, I believed him. The next morning, I stood on the front porch of my childhood home with a locksmith and a sheriff's deputy. The irony wasn't lost on me. 3 days ago, I couldn't get in. Now I was the one changing the locks. You sure about this, miss? The deputy asked. Family disputes can get ugly. It's already ugly, I said, watching the locksmith work. I'm just making it official. A car pulled up across the street. Mrs. Howard from next door got out, carrying a casserole dish. She'd been watching the drama unfold from her kitchen window for months. Taya, honey, she called, crossing the street. I brought you some dinner. Figured you might be too busy to cook. Thank you, Mrs. Howard. That's really kind. She lowered her voice. I heard what happened in court. About time someone stood up to that man. You knew about Dad's gambling? Honey, the whole neighborhood knew. Those men coming around at all hours, asking questions. Your father owed money to some very unpleasant people. The locksmith finished and handed me the new keys. All set. Nobody's getting in without your permission now. As he packed up his tools, another car pulled into the driveway. Dad got out, looking like he'd aged 10 years overnight. His clothes were wrinkled, his hair uncombed. Taya, what are you doing? Exercising my property rights. This is my home. No, it's not. The court was very clear about that. He walked up the porch steps, and I noticed the deputy's hand move to his radio. You can't just lock me out of my own house. I can, and I did. You have until tomorrow at noon to get your things. After that, anything left inside becomes my property. This is insane. I'm your father. You're a stranger who stole my money and threw me out on the street. Mrs. Howard stepped closer. Frank, you should be ashamed of yourself. That girl spent months caring for Eleanor while you were off gallivanting with your new wife. This doesn't concern you, Louisa. It concerns me when I have to watch a good woman get treated like garbage by her own family. Mrs. Howard's voice was getting louder. You want to know what concerns me? The conversations I overheard between you and that King woman. Dad went pale. What conversations? The ones where she was pushing you to get Taya out of the house faster so you could sell it and pay off your debts. The ones where she said Eleanor's medical bills were eating into her inheritance. You were eavesdropping? I was gardening. You were talking loud enough for the whole block to hear. Mrs. Howard turned to me. That woman had your father convinced that if he could get you declared incompetent, he could contest your mother's will and claim the house for himself. My stomach dropped. What? She had it all planned out. Make you look unstable, get you evicted, then challenge the will on grounds of undue influence. Mrs. Howard shook her head. She was already picking out new furniture. Dad was backing toward his car. Louisa, you don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about. I also know King cleaned out your bank accounts before she left town yesterday. She what? Took everything and ran. Left you a note on the kitchen counter, something about cutting her losses. Dad slumped against his car. She's gone? Gone with your money, your credit cards, and that jewelry you bought her with Taya's stolen funds. The deputy stepped forward. Sir, I think you should leave now. This is my neighborhood. I've lived here for 25 years. And now you don't, I said. You have until tomorrow at noon. Don't make me call the police. Dad looked at me with something that might have been desperation. Taya, please. I have nowhere to go. You should have thought of that before you decided I was dead weight. I didn't mean... Yes, you did. You meant every word. I walked up the porch steps and put the new key in the lock. Goodbye, Dad. I went inside and closed the door behind me. The house was exactly as I'd left it. Mom's medical equipment still in the living room, her bedroom unchanged, the kitchen still smelling faintly of her lavender soap. But something was different. The oppressive weight that had pressed down on me for months was gone. For the first time since Mom's diagnosis, I could breathe. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This isn't over. You haven't won anything. I deleted it without responding. Another text, this one from Mrs. Howard. If you need anything, I'm right across the street. Your mother would be proud of you. I sat down in Mom's favorite chair and looked around the living room. Tomorrow I'd start cleaning out the medical equipment. Next week I'd figure out what to do with all this space, all this money, all this freedom I never asked for. But tonight, I was just going to sit in my mother's chair in my house and remember what it felt like to be safe. My phone rang. Jillian's name on the screen. How did it go? She asked. I'm home. You're home now. Yeah, I said. And for the first time in months, I smiled. My home now. 2 weeks later, I was sorting through Mom's closet when Xander called. We have a problem, he said without preamble. Reese filed a motion to contest the will. I sat down hard on Mom's bed. On what grounds? Undue influence, mental incompetency, fraud. The usual suspects when someone's unhappy with an inheritance. Can she do that? She can try. Her lawyer is claiming your mother wasn't of sound mind when she made the will, and that you manipulated her while she was dying. That's insane. It's also expensive to fight, which I think is the point. She's hoping you'll settle rather than go through a lengthy court battle. My doorbell rang. Through the window, I could see a process server on my porch. I think I'm about to be served, I told Xander. Don't sign anything. Call me after you read it. The papers were thick, full of legal language that made my head spin. But the gist was clear. Reese wanted half of everything. The house, the money, all of it. I was still reading when my phone rang. Reese's number. Did you get my little present? She asked. What do you want? What's rightfully mine? Mom was sick, Taya. You took advantage of her. I took care of her. You isolated her, poisoned her against her own family, made her think we didn't love her. You didn't love her. You couldn't even be bothered to visit. I was building my career, my brand. Mom understood that. Your brand? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Your brand is posting selfies and shilling protein powder. My brand is worth 6 figures a year. What's yours worth? Oh, wait, you don't have one. You're a professional victim. And you're a professional parasite. We'll see what the judge thinks. I have evidence, Taya. Screenshots of you bad-mouthing Dad and me to Mom. Testimony from her nurses about how you controlled her medication, her visitors, everything. My blood went cold. What nurses? The ones who came when you weren't there. The ones who saw how you manipulated a dying woman. There were no nurses. I was there every day. Were you? Because I have records showing professional care services billed to Dad's insurance. Services you clearly didn't want anyone to know about. I hung up and immediately called Xander. She's lying, I said. There were no nurses. I never left Mom's side except to shower and eat. I believe you, but we need to prove it. Can you get me your mother's medical records? I have copies of everything. Good. Bring them to my office tomorrow. And Taya, don't talk to Reese again. Don't respond to her calls. Her texts, nothing. Let me handle this. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what Reese had said about evidence and testimony. How could she have evidence of things that never happened? At 3 a.m., I gave up on sleep and went to Mom's desk. I'd been avoiding going through her papers, but now I needed to find anything that might help my case. In the bottom drawer, I found a folder labeled Insurance Claims. Inside were dozens of forms, all for home health services I'd never heard of. Services that supposedly provided round-the-clock care for Mom during her final months. Services that had been billed to Dad's insurance and paid for with money from my drained bank account. I grabbed my phone and called Xander, not caring that it was the middle of the night. They've been planning this for months, I said when he answered. Dad and Reese. They set up fake nursing services, billed insurance, and used my stolen money to pay for it. Now Reese is going to use those fake records to prove I wasn't taking care of Mom. Slow down. What fake records? I explained what I'd found. Xander was quiet for a long moment. This is good, he finally said. This is very good. How is fraud good? Because it proves premeditation. They didn't just steal your money on impulse. They planned this whole thing. The fake nursing services, the eviction, the will contest, it's all connected. So what do? We turn the tables. I'm calling the district attorney first thing in the morning. Insurance fraud is a federal crime. What about the will contest? What about it? When the judge sees that Reese and your father conspired to defraud insurance companies and steal your money to cover their tracks, her credibility is going to be shot. I looked around Mom's bedroom, at the medical equipment I still hadn't had the heart to remove, at the chair where I'd spent countless nights watching her sleep. They really thought they could get away with this. They probably would have, if your mother hadn't been smarter than all of them combined. What do you mean? I mean, she knew exactly what kind of people she was dealing with. That's why she was so careful, so thorough. She knew they'd try something like this. She knew they'd contest the will. She knew they'd try to destroy you if they thought they could profit from it. That's why she made sure you had the best possible legal protection. I hung up and sat in the dark, surrounded by the remnants of my mother's life. Tomorrow, the real battle would begin. But for the first time since this nightmare started, I felt like I might actually win. My phone buzzed. A text from Reese. "Sleep tight, sis. Tomorrow we find out what you're really made of." I deleted it and turned off my phone. Tomorrow, she'd find out what I was really made of, and she wasn't going to like it. The courtroom was packed this time. Word had gotten out about the insurance fraud, and local reporters filled the back rows. Reese sat at the plaintiff's table with her lawyer, but she kept glancing nervously at the federal agents who'd taken seats near the door. Judge Martinez called the session to order. "Before we address the will contest, I understand there are some criminal matters to discuss." The lead FBI agent stood up. "Your Honor, we've completed our investigation into the insurance fraud allegations. We're prepared to file federal charges against Frank Robinson and Reese Robinson for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, insurance fraud, and identity theft." Reese shot to her feet. "That's impossible. I never—" "Sit down," her lawyer hissed, pulling her back into her chair. "The evidence is overwhelming," the agent continued. "Falsified nursing service claims totaling over $40,000, paid for with funds illegally transferred from the victims' accounts. We have digital records, forged signatures, the works." Judge Martinez looked at Reese's lawyer. "Counselor, does your client wish to withdraw her will contest in light of these developments?" "Your Honor, my client maintains her innocence and—" "No." Reese stood again, shaking off her lawyer's restraining hand. "I'm not withdrawing anything. She doesn't deserve that money." "Ms. Robinson," the judge warned, "you're not helping your case." "I don't care. Do you know what she did? She turned our dying mother against us. She made Mom think we didn't love her." "Because you didn't," I said quietly. "That's not true. When's the last time you visited her before she got sick?" Reese's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "I was busy Christmas 2 years ago for 3 hours. You spent the whole time taking selfies by the tree. That's not— When's the last time you called her just to talk? Not to ask for money, not to complain about Dad, just to see how she was doing." Silence. "You want to know what Mom said about you in her final weeks?" I stood up, facing my sister across the courtroom. "She said she wished she'd been a better mother to you. She blamed herself for how you turned out. She died thinking she'd failed you." Tears were streaming down Reese's face now, but her voice was still venomous. "Shut up! She loved you anyway. Even after everything you put her through, she still loved you. And you repaid that love by stealing from her daughter and trying to destroy the one person who actually cared for her." I said, "Shut up." The truth hurts, doesn't it? Judge Martinez banged her gavel. "That's enough. Ms. Robinson, your will contest is dismissed. Furthermore, I'm recommending you be held without bail pending your federal trial." "Wait, what?" Reese spun toward her lawyer. "You said I wouldn't go to jail." "I said you might not go to jail if you cooperated. You just confessed to your motives in open court." The bailiff was already moving toward Reese with handcuffs. "No, wait. Taya, please. We're family." I watched as they cuffed her, as they read her rights, as they led her away still screaming about family and fairness, and how none of this was her fault. After the courtroom cleared, Xander and I stood in the hallway. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Empty," I said honestly. "I thought I'd feel satisfied, but I just feel empty." "That's normal. Winning doesn't always feel like winning when it costs you your family." "They weren't my family. Not really. Family doesn't do what they did." "No, they don't." We walked outside into the afternoon sun. Across the street, I could see Dad sitting on a bench, looking older and more broken than I'd ever seen him. He saw me and started to stand, But I shook my head. He sat back down. What happens now? I asked Xander. Now you live your life. You figure out what you want to do with your inheritance, with your freedom, with your future. I've been thinking about that. I pulled out my phone and showed him some photos I'd taken. There's this organization that helps people who are caring for terminally ill family members. They need funding for a residential facility where caregivers can stay when they can't afford to take time off work. You want to fund a facility? I want to build one. In Mom's name. She always said the hardest part wasn't watching someone die. It was doing it alone. Xander smiled. I think she'd like that. My phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Howard. Saw the news. Your mother would be so proud. Dinner's at 6 if you want company. I looked back at the courthouse, then at Dad still sitting on his bench, then at the message from the woman who'd shown me more kindness in the past month than my own family had in years. Want to come to dinner? I asked Xander. Mrs. Howard makes a mean pot roast. I'd like that. As we walked toward my car, I thought about Mom's final diary entry, the one I'd found the night before. Forgiveness is for the strong. You, my girl, are strong enough for truth. She was right. I was strong enough for truth. Strong enough to see my family for who they really were. Strong enough to walk away from people who saw me as dead weight. And strong enough to build something beautiful from the ashes they tried to leave me in. I wasn't anyone's dead weight anymore. I was free.